Thank you for coming down. I just have a few questions to ask you. Well, Chief, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. I have certainly appreciate it, man. I'm honored, and it's a privilege to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you on. I've been following you on Twitter for a while, which it appears you have quite a little Twitter following, and it's an honor to have you on here.
Well, thank you. It's yeah, I got a few thousand. I mean, it's about 7,000 followers. As I tell people, it's amazing what a few dad jokes every now and then will do for you, in the social media realm. But no, when you reached out to me, I was like, this is great, man. This is exactly, the people I like to talk to and the shows I like to do, and first, hey, listen, thank you for your service as a first responder in law enforcement and everybody that's listening. If you're a first responder, military, healthcare worker, whatever, thank you so much, for your service. Part of my thing and my background and part of my mission thing, whatever you want to call it online, is trying to promote a little bit of that honor and character and integrity into young people. And, we'll get into that in a minute, but
Absolutely.
People like, you, myself, or your audience and the people listening that have done something bigger than themselves and stepped up, to make it a career choice. We are truly the 1-2% of the world, and we need to pass that message along to our youth and bring them up to take our place. So again, to your audience, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And thank you for, I know you're a military veteran, which we'll get more into, but thank you for your service. So
yeah. You're welcome.
So I like to start with a few get to know you type questions. So I'll just throw those out to you. Coffee or tea?
Oh, come on, man. Navy Chiefs.
I throw this out all the time, and you'd be amazed how many times I get lemonade or something completely. I said coffee and tea, and I'll get something completely out of left field.
No, Navy Chiefs are known for coffee. I mean, sailors are known for coffee. Navy Chiefs are particularly known for coffee. And, I wrote a little ebook about coffee. Well, no, it wasn't about coffee, but it's about sailor stuff. So, part of the stuff we learn is the history of coffee. Why is it called a cup of joe? It's called a cup of joe for the admiral that did away with the rations of rum on a ship. And, most Navy Chiefs, if you talk to a sailor or a Navy Chief, they'll ask you, what's the worst thing you can do in the world? And it's wash a Chief's coffee cup.
I was about to go there. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. No, you never wash a Chief's cup. I don't wash mine. I mean, I rinse it out. Don't get me wrong. You don't have mold and stuff growing in there, but the porcelain cups and all that, and people would ask you why. And, an old chief, when I was just, a young E3 in the Navy, I asked the chief, I'm like, Chief, how come you don't want us to wash your coffee cup? And he's like, look, man, he goes, in the rare event that, almost a mutinous event, but in the rare event we run out of coffee, I can always boil water, let it sit and steep in the cup, and I can get by until I can kick the person's ass that let us run out of coffee.
That is awesome. I've never heard that explanation before.
Well, I mean, that's the way it was told to me. So
I love it. I absolutely
so,
love it.
I'm a coffee guy, straight up.
Good answer. I couldn't agree with you more. Where's your favorite place to have that cup of coffee?
You know what? I'll go back and forth a little bit with my prior life. Like you mentioned, I did 24 years in the Navy. Back then my favorite place was probably the flight line in the morning. As the sun's coming up, it's quiet, you haven't really started yet. You're looking at the airplanes. It's quiet, the sun, you're thinking, you're trying to get in your head, what the day is going to be like. And, for me, it was just sit there and you have that little sip of coffee and it's just like, my God, I'm the luckiest dude in the world, man. I get to play with airplanes for a living. I live and serve the world's greatest country and the world's greatest people. What could be better, So yeah, that was my favorite place. My favorite place now is on the back deck of my house. Lots of bird feeders, and we live in the woods, and wind chimes. So there's just something about that. Same thing in the morning, you just get out there and it's a little bit of you know what? I'm really lucky to be here, and it's a great day. And anything that happens today is just a bonus. So that's where I have my coffee.
It's awesome. And
Yeah,
it's funny, every time I ask that question, I get a little bit different story, but it's always like there's this moment we all have where that's where we like to have our favorite cup of coffee.
yeah,
It's kind of cool.
yeah.
Best or worst travel story, and it can be military related.
Wow, wow. The military travel stories are just ridiculous. I was in a maritime patrol squadron. Big airplanes, so we flew everywhere. Probably the best travel story would have been in in the military. Obviously, uh, the very first time I got to go to Rota, Spain, we deployed there, and we flew over, and it was just something about that was really one of my first experiences of being overseas, and you know learning, seeing a different culture, things that you'd heard about. The people actually speak real Spanish there, obviously, because they're in Spain. And the beaches, the countryside, everything that just looks and seems so different. And the best part of the travel part of that was, it's the smallest things that you take in as a youth. And it's, the fact, for the first time in my life, I couldn't read a street sign.
Wow.
So
Little
I
things you
mean,
don't even think about.
yeah, so that's kind of what hit me. And you see different cultures, but you reflect on it later and you realize we're different cultures, but people are still people. For me, the travel stories, a mom still walks her kid to the grocery store in the morning, and it looks the same as if it's in Brooklyn, if it's in Rota, Spain, if it's in Germany, wherever it is. A mom is taking care of her kid. People are going to work, they live, they die, they cry, they laugh. People are people.
Yeah.
It's just we talk a little different, we look a little different, but that's the best travel story I've ever had. So I mean, I don't think I've ever even had a bad travel story. Even the hardest days traveling on the road with the military or with government work, nah, man. Even the bad days are good days,
Yeah.
because you know what, it sounds overly, a big platitude, but I take it very seriously. Anywhere I'm going, I'm on my own two legs, and they're mine, and this is my body. It's still whole. Well, I'm 56, so it's not all technically whole, but all the parts are still mine. You
Yep.
know, and then of all the opportunities in the world that the bad people have had to kill me, they didn't succeed. So there's no bad days for me, man. None.
It's awesome. That's a great answer too. And it really tells a lot too, because there's so much importance to that whole concept of it's about the journey. It sounds almost cliche. People say that all the time. It's not, but it's true. Even like you said, even the bad days or even the bad events turn out to be good days in the long run.
Yeah.
And the lessons we can learn are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite or most meaningful nonfiction book, and why?
Oh wow. I guess I guess the most meaningful nonfiction book. Wow, I gotta split between two, man. I can't not pick between these two. One is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu. I can't ever say his name, but you know who he is.
Yes.
The Art of War, and then the biography of Ulysses S. Grant. Those are the two nonfiction books that have been with me since I was a young sailor, because they were recommended to me by a senior petty officer to read. And as the people that were senior to me saw something in me that told them that I would make a good leader one day, they started mentoring me and giving me things to think about. And those were the two books that they really passed on to me, that I don't want to say they molded me into the leader I am, but they gave me, I call them guardrails, to
Right.
kind of keep me from bouncing all over the place in my leadership style. Those two things kind of keep me in line. So those are probably the two most influential nonfiction books that I have still. They sit on my desk to this day, 30, 35 plus years later. They sit on my desk constantly.
That's great. And I have obviously read The Art of War. I've never read U.S. Grant's biography, so I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
Ulysses S. Grant.
and it's really good because he touches, you get it. once you get past, I'll just say it, once you get past the crap of, get past what the Civil War, your thoughts on it, whether it was right, wrong, it doesn't really matter because it happened.
Right.
There's no change in that. So, but if you look past that and you understand where Grant came from, you understand his childhood, you understand, when he went to West Point, I read it in the vein of, what molded this man what molded him and made him what is probably one of the top 3, top 4 military commanders in the history, of the world, in my opinion. I mean, the guy led the campaigns that he led and the things that he had to do to bring the Civil War to a close, while not pretty.
Yeah.
It's still, they were, as a leader, those are hard decisions that had to be made, and that's the vein I look at it is not of whether it was moral, immoral, right, wrong, or indifferent. You can't judge the morality of a war unless you've been there. And even then you can't judge it because it's just war.
And even more complicated when it's brother and brother. I mean,
it is,
from the same nation.
We're not fighting the dreaded Hun. We're not fighting the Russians, China, whoever. We're not fighting an enemy from outside. We're fighting the enemy within. So he had to make some really hard choices. And on the flip side too, I've read the writings from, the journals of Robert E. Lee, another man who's probably way more maligned these days than Grant, for reasons, but even the leadership decisions he had to make, and even his own, when you read that man's personal thoughts, the man actually hated slavery.
Right.
He hated it. He said that if it were up to him, he would not, we wouldn't even be doing it. He hated it. But the fact of the matter is he chose a side. He chose to stand with his beliefs. He stood to defend his home, Virginia, and he made a choice and he stuck with it. He could have gave up. He could have switched, but he didn't. Right. So it's just all perspective. But yeah, those are really, really good books.
Very good. I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah.
And I think you bring up such a good point that, decisions, and as we segue here in a little bit, we'll get to the leadership stuff, but, this looking back at it, we can learn something from both sides of any conflict and kind of what was going through. I mean, there's lessons we can learn both in defeat and failure and successes, and maybe in retrospect, everything we'd make decisions differently, but that's not the world we live in. We don't get to go forward looking in retrospect. So from here, maybe just give me a little bit of, you touched on a little bit, but a little bit of your journey, a little bit. I know you spent 24 years in the Navy, but give us a little bit more of your journey and what brings you to here.
Yeah. I was born in Northeast Georgia, up in the mountains, middle class, nothing special, little town. I mean, I lived in a very small town up on the Georgia-South Carolina line, right off what is now Interstate 85. I'm old enough to remember when they built Interstate 85. But, little town. So in fact, little town, we had to actually rent a dog from across the state line in Anderson, South Carolina. We rented a dog for our town on weekends so that we could be a 1-dog town. That's how small we were. We didn't even have any dogs. No, I'm just kidding.
I love that.
But no, it's a small town. It's rural, Northeast Georgia. My family, my grandfather was a moonshiner, dirt farmer. My dad, he worked for the telephone company, was active in civics, and that's where I really picked up my very first leadership lesson. That I'll tell you a little story and a little bit about that. But turned 18, decided that I didn't want to waste my parents' money with college because I had been a class clown for 4 years of high school. Highly intelligent, but I wasn't motivated and I wasn't focused. It was more fun to get girls and make them laugh than it was to put my efforts towards studies. So my dad said, well, you ain't got to go to college, but you ain't staying here. So I joined the Army, believe it or not, first of all.
Wow.
And I did 2 years in the Army. I was a welder. Went to school up at Aberdeen Proving Ground, got ready to be assigned and just saw what was coming and decided that I didn't really want to go camping for a living. It was a great hobby, but I didn't like having to match my side of the tent with some other dude. And so I said, I want a way out, and I don't want to give up, but this just isn't for me. So they let me go talk to a recruiter at the Navy at the time. And at the time, as long as I re-enlisted within 90 days, they discharged me from the Army, let me re-enlist in the Navy.
Wow.
I did. So I got to go to 2 boot camps. I went to Army boot camp in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. If any of your old listeners, old Army veterans, if they went to Fort Jackson, if they remember Tank Hill and the old World War II barracks, I did that. And then I went to Navy boot camp in Orlando. Got involved in aviation because I've always loved flying. I was the little kid that always stared out the window at the airport. Got involved in aviation. Did a couple of tours as a helicopter dude. Got to do the carrier thing. It's nowhere near as cool as they make it look on movies. It's not, trust me.
I believe you.
Yeah, it's not. But, did that, went air crew, and, just progressed up the ranks, became an instructor flight engineer on P-3 Orions, retired in 2007, and did like the majority of retired senior enlisted military dudes. I turned around that next Monday and went to work for the government, for the Navy, managing a P-3 program. Moved down here to Pax River, Maryland. For those of you that are Google Maps fans, you can Google Patuxent River Naval Air Station. That's where I'm at. I'm down on the little peninsula of Maryland. We just had about 8 inches of rain earlier this morning with a storm. But
part of Isaias or whatever.
Yeah, we're fine.
Good.
So I've been working for the federal government, for the Navy, ever since 2007. Currently I'm a program manager for foreign military sales. Primarily I deal with the CAD-PAD, they're the energetics, all the explosive energetics that deal with ejection seats for aircraft, bomb release, fire bottles. And I also manage portfolios for, general purpose bombs, weapons racks, stuff like that. So that's how I wound up here and, living the dream. That's pretty much me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's been cool.
That carrier thing, my grandfather was in the tin can Navy days. So he was on the Yorktown back in the day.
Yeah. Ship life is they make carriers look really cool in Top Gun and all the movies with the steam coming up on the sunrise. And yeah, it's cool. It's really cool for about the first 10 minutes. And then it becomes the same 10 minutes over and over and over. And then it's just, it's the hottest, noisiest, dangerous place you've ever been in your life. And it's not as cool as you think. It's cool, but it's not that cool.
Very good. So from there, you've done a lot in the leadership and mentorship realms. And that's kind of how I got to know you, is what you were doing out there on Twitter. You sign off with Semper Fortis, which means always courageous, I believe, in Latin, if I have that correctly.
Always strong.
Always strong.
Always courageous, always strong, yeah.
Okay. So maybe walk us a little bit down that road. How'd you get started in the leadership, mentorship, obviously with your experience, but then how does that segue over into what you're doing? Yeah,
actually my forays into leadership, unbeknownst to me, until years later when I reflected on it, I've told this story on other podcasts, and I've told it in writing, I believe, on one of my blog posts. I'm not sure. But, my earliest thoughts and memories of leadership was my dad. Back when I was 12. I was 11 or 12 years old. My dad decided he'd run for city council in our little town. And, he was well-liked, well-respected, and he won. And so as a new councilman, one of his areas of responsibility was the town sanitation department, the trash truck. So, okay, one of many. So one Saturday morning, he got up early, and he told me the night before, he goes, "Yep, I'm getting up in the morning. I'm going to go ride the trash truck." Okay. Well, you got to put this in the mindset of a 12-year-old boy who's, making friends. It's a tight community. Everybody knows you. Back then, you didn't call them sanitation engineers yet. They were trash men.
Right.
You know, nothing wrong with that. It's a job, but you know, people know what they did. They went around and picked up the trash. You know, so for a 12-year-old mentality, you know, you're middle class. You're like, oh my God, you're floored. You know, you're like, oh my God, my dad's gonna be riding a trash truck. What are my friends gonna say? You know, so he went and he did it. And he came home, and you know, I was a typical 12-year-old, 13-year-old brat. You know, I pitched a bitch about it. You know, and he sat me down, and I still remember this. And he told me several times after that, he goes, you know why I did that? He goes, I didn't have to do it. He goes, nothing made me do it. He goes, son, if I'm going to be in charge of the sanitation department as the councilman and oversee it, he goes, how can I know what they're doing if I don't go do it with them? He goes, they can tell me what they're doing. He goes, it's not hard to tell me. You ride on the back of a truck, you pick up the thing, you dump the trash in, you fill it up the truck, and you go take it to the dump, and you dump it. You do this over and over till you get to the town and you pick up the trash. He goes, a couple of things. He goes, first of all, he goes, I need to know what they're doing so I know what their problems are. I need to know how bad a shape the trucks are in. Could we do their routes better? He goes, second of all, he goes, and this is what stuck with me too. He goes, you are no better than a trash man, ditch digger. He goes, you're no better than any man or any woman out doing a job. If they're out putting food on their family's table and they're making an honest living doing it, they are kings and queens of this world. So yeah. You're no better than them. So that kind of got, as a young boy, that got my mind thinking. And, you know, I was in Boy Scouts, you know, so you pick it up from there. And then obviously when you get in the military, you know, most people, you know, you see in the military, they go one of two ways. You know, there's the people that come in, they join the military, they're going to do 4 years, they're going to get some money for college. They're going to get out after 4 years, and they're going to go on with their life. And that's great. You know, good on you. There's other people that come in and after the first 4 years, they go, man, this is pretty cool gig. I like it. I like doing this. I like this lifestyle. And you continue and you make a career. You learn leadership there. But I think what really got me was when I went to my second boot camp in the Navy. And, you know, your company commanders at Navy boot camp, they found out, I didn't say anything to anybody, but they found out that I had already been to Army boot camp. And so they pulled me in, they're like, look, dude, seriously? I'm like, oh, you know, what do you mean tell you? Right. And they go, there's nothing you already know the gig. You know the routine, you know what we're trying to do, you know the process. So you're going to be in charge. You're the recruit chief petty officer. Okay. You know, and so getting people to react to me and to that feeling of not, and it is not. It is not about making people do what you say. It's gathering up a group of people to go with you to accomplish something. And the fact that they're looking to you and going, all right, Chuck, what do we do now? What's our next move? What do we do? What do you want? What do you need us to do?
Yeah.
We're going to go do this. And right, wrong, or indifferent, we're going to go. So yeah, I mean, it developed over the years. And then as you get more seniors, I got more experienced in it. That was always still a thrill. But then where I really, really, really got my enjoyment out of leadership was seeing that young me in someone else and going, hey, shipmate, pull up alongside. Let's take a walk on the hangar deck. I'm gonna take you and I'm gonna make you a leader because you've shown me things. You know, you have that desire. And then watching them grow, and I'll be quite honest, watching the majority of them become better leaders than I am. That was just, to me, I mean, my heart just swells up when I see that. And it's not because I can say, look at what I did. I can say, look at what they did. You know, I planted a little seed and they just turned it into a farm. This is awesome. So, I mean, that's kind of what got me on this path. And then as I became a civic leader, you know, I was a Boy Scout leader, and that's probably a bad thing to say these days. But, you know, in my time, I was very proud of it.
I was gonna say, back when the Boy Scouts was the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, it was. You know, it's, you know, my son, he came up, he got
Yep.
his Eagle Scout. You know, we turned a lot of young men into Eagles, but having those conversations, and it's so important. I mean, this will offend. Sometimes I say this online, and I've said it in person, and the people that are small-minded get very offended. But I say that young men need male voices.
It's true
You
though.
know, and it's not that I have anything against women. It's just our society, the way it has become. Young boys are, you know, they're raised by their mothers. Their mother is the nurturer, but then they go to school, and it's almost all female teachers in elementary school. Why? Because most dudes are afraid of getting hit with a lawsuit if they say the wrong thing. And even in high school, they're surrounded by women, and it's not bad, but I can prove it from experience when I worked with Cub Scouts, you know, the 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and even Boy Scouts. You know, the den mothers in Cub Scouts, though, they try to, boys, sit down, boys, sit down, boys, sit down. And it's just, you know, you get 26-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and it's like herding cats.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, but all I had to do was just stand in the back of the room and go, gentlemen. I mean, and it would get dead quiet, and their heads would snap around and look at me. And it's not that I mean, I've been told I'm an intimidating figure sometimes, but it's not that. It's just they react to a male voice.
Yeah.
Young boys react to a male voice because it's that authority and that authority. So that kind of got me. I loved having those conversations and having the young men and being able to have those hard conversations that you need to have with young men about here are things that you don't do. Here are things you shouldn't do. This is how you act as a gentleman, and so forth and so on. So that was a very long-winded answer to get you to where we wanted to go. Sorry.
Yeah, but no, I couldn't agree with you more. And I mean, even on what you were just saying, that really resonated because my son was in, he just turned 18 now, so he aged out of the Boy Scout program, but he was in for pretty much since a Cub Scout or since a Tiger Cub, actually.
Yeah.
And same thing. I've seen exactly what you're saying. And you're right, in this current world environment, whatever we want to call it, there's those who are probably going to say not like what we're saying, but it's so true. And it's in no way derogatory towards a female voice, because they need that also.
Yes.
But they need that balance. You have to have male role models, especially when we're talking about raising young men. Otherwise, we're not going to have young men. In fact, let me maybe, and I don't know if this is a rabbit trail we want to run down or not, but would you say we have a crisis of leadership right now when it comes to in general?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have had a crisis for years. And, you know, that's a broad statement to make. And it's almost a Twitter-esque statement to make is, you know, yep, we got a crisis in leadership. But, you know, the next logical step is going, well, where and why?
Right.
I think, for me personally, I think I noticed a shift away from solid leadership somewhere this is just my opinion. In this country alone, it happened after the Reagan presidency. And this isn't to say yes or no, good or bad to a certain administration, but, you know, for me, that was just it's a chalk mark, snap line along the timeline of, you know, we seem to have outgrown ourselves too fast. We wanted to expand ourselves. We wanted new opportunities for people. We wanted expansion and we wanted diversity, and those are all good things. But when you know, nature, when you take something that's convergent and you go divergent in an airstream, it speeds up and it gets really hot.
Yeah.
And then it cools down really quick. So when you try to do all of this stuff at once without remembering where you were, I think the crisis of leadership came when people that we put in place as leaders, and I'll use this as an example. You know, Tip O'Neill was Speaker of the House during the Reagan years. You know,
right.
You know, Massachusetts Democrat, liberal to the core. Ronald Reagan was the Republican conservative from California, both ends of the countries, the cowboy actor, the staunch, you know, blue blood, you know, history of being in politics. And the two guys those two guys really didn't see eye to eye on a lot administratively and legislatively and politically. But the thing is you compare it to today, Ron Reagan and Tip O'Neill were actually great friends. They would have dinner together. They would go on vacations together. They truly liked each other as people. And they had that ability to understand that, hey, we're not going to agree. We are going to be diametrically opposed to each other on some things. So here's what we have to do as leaders. Yeah. We got to find that compromise. We lost our honor. We lost our honor in the midst of being so worried about being politically correct and being so worried about hurting people's feelings and so worried about meeting quotas and meeting, we got to make things, we got to go so hard to the other side of the pendulum that we're just going to ruin things. A couple of points about that is, I noticed on your website and I noticed on your podcast, you start off with, I would assume as a law enforcement officer's oath, on my honor, I will not, let go of my bag. Boy Scouts start off with on my honor. Navy core values are honor, courage, and commitment. And you did a podcast on the 4th of July, I saw, and I've written about this so many times and I talk about it. The most famous words that nobody ever talks about is at the end of the Declaration of Independence, to when these 30-something gentlemen pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to bring this country. Yeah. Honor used to mean something, and people would fight and die for it. Death before dishonor, duty, honor, country. When we lost sight of what our honor is and that's a whole nother show. I can talk for an hour on honor. Hey, what is honorable? Is a guy that goes out and steals bread for his family because he's got a starving child that's going to die if he doesn't feed it. He's a thief and he broke the law, but is he still an honorable person?
Right.
It's not a yes or no question. You'll answer it different than I will.
Right.
But it's something to think about. So your honor is what your honor is. You may look at that guy and go, he's a thief, cut and dried, period. My honor tells me he's a thief. There is no gray. I may look at the guy and go, hey, he was doing natural law. He was doing what he had to do to put food on his family's table.
I was about to say that. You just took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, so, I mean, the guy, at least, the whole thing, honor among thieves. Thieves wouldn't tell on each other.
Right.
I posted something the other day that probably lost me. I think it lost me like 50 followers because I said something about unions, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I just said, hey, unions are the modern day mafia without the honor that the old Italian mafioso families had.
Yeah.
At least they had honor amongst each other, but still that we lost that. And it ties into leadership. Leadership is not a thing. Leadership is a skill set. Leadership is nothing more than being a transformational person. You're at the helm to make transformation. But what makes you a good leader is your character, your integrity, your accountability, your responsibility. And all those things tie back to your honor. What makes your core person? What is right to you? And so we have lost track of what we think is right and what you see people now screaming about justice. You don't know justice.
Right.
Just be careful what you ask for when you scream for justice, because it may not go your way. Justice can be ugly. Justice can be cruel. But the people, they don't have the honor to stand up and say, this is right. I'm standing up for this. And I'll die on this hill, and with honor, we lost respect. I don't have to tell you, the thing that just pisses me off more than anything these days is how do we lose respect for authority?
Right.
So all of those things have led us to a crisis in leadership. And I hope we get to talk about respect towards law enforcement officers, because I got an opinion on that, man. Holy cow. But anyway.
Well, no, let's go ahead and go down it. You're absolutely right. Like, and I think this all ties together. You know, I think it was Adams and several of John Adams, Jefferson, a few of these guys had said that we have to be a virtuous people first and foremost, because if we lose the virtue, which is along the lines of honor, like what you're talking about, we don't have that core element that kind of holds, it's the glue that holds everything else together. And it is kind of the decision-making process as well. Like you pointed out with, is taking bread to feed this child that's going to die if you don't, you know, now you're getting into a natural law question that could actually be answered with virtue, you know,
Sure.
because obviously the sanctity of life issue comes into play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, sadly, something has fallen apart when it comes to respect for leadership in general. And sadly, I think it started, this is my opinion, I think it started back in like the school systems and so forth, and in other parts of society. And now you're seeing it towards law enforcement and so forth. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, my wife is a substitute teacher, and you know, my son went to elementary school primarily in New Orleans area because that's where I was stationed then. And then, you know, he finished out his school, middle school in Pennsylvania, and then here in Southern Maryland, he finished out high school. But you know, my next door neighbor was a teacher, and I remember when I went to school, and this is way back in the dark ages because I graduated high school in like 1981. I mean, and kids, yes, that's for any young people. That's 1981. That's a long time ago. MTV showed music videos then, kids.
Yes.
But you know, our principal was a male, always was, and usually a football coach, basketball coach, and he walked the hall with a paddle, you know, and he had the paddle with the air holes drilled in to stop the air resistance to get that speed. But the teachers were women and they had paddles, and they wouldn't hesitate to pop your ass if you got out of line. And then they call your parents, and when you got home, it was even worse.
Yep.
You know, you live in a small town, you know, Twitter's got nothing on a small town bunch of mothers, because you couldn't do something on one side of town before they call your mom, before you could get home, you know. But they all knew it, you know. I laugh and say, hey, we all knew where each other was. You know, in the summertime, you see where all the bikes are piled up, whose yard they're piled up at lunchtime, because you're going to all eat the same thing. You're going to eat cheese sandwiches and Kool-Aid. But, you know, the people took care of themselves. But in school, we lost this, you know, and God, I really don't want to get into the teachers union thing, but
I have a feeling though we would agree on it with each other, so we'll just not go down that rabbit trail.
Yeah, we would. But, you know, we forced a curriculum on kids. You know, we can't, you know, it started when you can't pray in school. Okay, the old joke goes, but it's true. What sixth grader hasn't ever sat down to an algebra test and prayed?
Right.
We all did.
Absolutely.
You know, that's my most religious time, is right before an exam. But, you know, we took that out. We, you know, now, you know, there's debate on whether I should, you know, stand for the pledge. We even say the pledge anymore. You know, all of this stuff going on. We lost. Respect is earned. I get that. You shouldn't, I don't automatically have to respect anything. Well, okay, yeah, you do. But first of all, but it's just common decency. And it's just cultural decency that, you know, you don't have to agree with everything, but you hey, it's time. You know, you could be an atheist. When it's time to pray before a game, something like that, hey, you be respectful, clasp your hand, bow your head, stand there and be quiet, shut your mouth. You know what? You may not like this country and everything we stand for. They play that anthem. Stand up, stand through it, be respectful, just be courteous. You know, I akin it to, on a bigger national level, you go to somebody's house, you're not going to really, you know, somebody's mother cooks you dinner. How did you like the chicken cacciatore? You're not going to say, Mrs. Jones, that was the crappiest meal I've ever had. You're going to go, Mrs. Jones, that was a lovely meal, and thank you for your hospitality. You know,
Yep. People
need to treat the same way about respect for others. You know, respect for authority is, you know, I guess the cool thing now is, you know, you rage against the authority. Why? I don't know. But, you know, authority is there. You know, I always tell people it's like locks. Locks are on lockers not to keep thieves out. It's to keep honest people honest. Police aren't there to arrest you. Police are there to keep you from doing something stupid, because you're going, there may be a cop car around the corner. You know, I when I was going to the office, I go the same road every day. I know where the Maryland State Patrol sits. I know where the troopers sit. So whether they're there or not, I'm going to back off and go, I ain't going to take no chance. You know, I mean, they're not there looking to arrest you. It's there as a deterrent.
Yeah.
You know, it's why it's called law enforcement. You know, they're there to enforce the law, but they're really there to prevent you from being stupid. It's stupid prevention is what I call it. You know,
I think that's
so,
very accurate.
well, it is. I mean, you know, I can tell you from experience. I mean, I have sat in a jail when I was young, till my dad came and got me, because I was stupid. You know, I've had run-ins with law enforcement because I was being stupid. You know, but the thing is I didn't have to make a show out of it. I didn't have to make a big deal out of it. You know, respect for law enforcement. They are an authority figure, whether people like it or not. And here's why. I'm not a police officer. I'm not in law enforcement, but you go through an accreditation process to become warranted. You take an oath. You are the badge, whether it's a badge, the uniform, whatever. You are representative of a higher authority that has the authority to make laws and decide how they're going to be enforced.
Yeah.
Kids, whether you're in Portland, Seattle, wherever you are, this is how we do it in this country. There's a big long document here in DC up the road from me that's in the archives. It's called the Constitution. It lays out how we do all this.
Yep.
If you don't like it, don't go burn down Starbucks, turn 18, register to vote, run for office, and then go change the damn thing.
Yeah.
But why have some respect for the man or woman behind that badge doing that job. They are there as a deterrent to your own stupidity. You know, the biggest thing that crushed me was when they took Live PD off the air because of political correctness. Because I love the show, because I love me. I sit at Walmart and watch people. I love watching the stupidity parade.
Yes.
But the bigger message with Live PD was showing you the actual side of, here's the other side of law enforcement that you don't see on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, on the news, which is just as bad as TikTok. Worse, actually.
Yeah, sometimes worse.
You know, but you get to see the side of, to me, you get to see the side of, on the news, you saw the 15 seconds where this cop had finally had enough. He grabs the guy, throws his arms behind him, puts him in cuffs, sits him in the car and tells him to shut the hell up. With something like Live PD and stuff like that, you get to see the 20 minutes of pure idiocy that led up to this cop. How many times you had to tell him, dude, look, man, we don't want to do this. Dude, seriously, shut up. You don't want to, dude, shut up. Dude, stop. Dude, I don't want to do this. But you watch how it all plays up, but all you see is that little bit. The thing is we didn't fear the police in my little town. We respected them. And we respected them for two, 3 reasons. First of all, we knew that they were acting on the authority of the town. We knew that they were going to go tell our dads. You know, we knew that our dad was going to whip our ass, because now the worst thing you could do other than being stupid in front of the cop was embarrass your dad and your mom in front of a cop. Yeah. You know, because the police they represented the city you're in. Yeah. You know, and I think to me, the biggest thing that just really torques me down online is I will see people that are posting crap about police, defund the police need this, the police are this. They're you know, jackbooted thugs and all this. But on the same hand, they'll turn around and, oh, hey, Chief, thank you for your service. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you for putting your life on the line for me. And I just want to go, you idiot. Did you not see what you just did? You're sitting here bitching. We're the same people. Yeah. We have the same we're here to protect you and, you know, save you from yourself sometimes. Yeah. If you respect me for wearing a uniform to defend your country, you best well be respecting that law enforcement officer for wearing a uniform every day to protect you on a day-to-day basis, to keep your shit from being stolen and your kitten from being kidnapped and your kids safe going across the street. And then not to mention all the stupid things you call 911 for because you didn't get the sauce on your burrito at Taco Bell. Right. You know, I mean, seriously. So, oh yeah. You know, I think it's people really need to just take a step back and understand what respect is. I don't have to like everything the police do. I think that there may be a need for police reform? Sure, I'm sure there is.
Yeah,
There's a need for reform in everything.
exactly.
You
We
can
can
always
all do
process
better.
yeah, you can always do better. You're going to get the cops. You're just like in the military. They talk about these rogue cops. You had rogue guys in the military. I can't tell you how many times I had Rambo, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 23rd that showed up at the squad. I'm going to kill commies. Okay, dude, whatever. Yeah, sure you are. Yep. Mm-hmm. But he had that mindset of this is all I'm going to do. You get the same thing. You have bad cops, you have good cops. You have good and bad of everything. Let's stop focusing on just the bad. Let's take a little more time and focus on, for every bad cop, there's probably 130 great cops, So focus on that, quit focusing on the bad. I think it's just a matter. And if you don't want to call it respect, because in your young 24-year-old mind that you know everything, if you don't want to call it respect, because you got to earn my respect. Okay, Junior, let's be courteous. Let's be polite. Let's be polite to the nice person that's trying to do their job and go home and see their family.
Right.
So that's what it comes down to.
No, I think that is great. And I think you hit on a few key things. And I would almost say that, like in the story you were giving, it really resonated with kind of my upbringing. I'm a little bit younger, but still I grew up in a small town. So I went to a Christian school. So we had a lot of those same elements with there was a pastor that had the paddle stick. And if you got in trouble in the classroom, if they didn't spank you there, you were going to get spanked in his office. And if you got spanked in there, you were definitely getting it when you got home. That's just the way that worked, which leads me to, and on that same vein, I think about, like with my parents, I was always taught, if you need help, go to the law enforcement officer is here to help you. This is the good guy. If you're lost, when from a young age, if you're lost, this is the guy in the uniform. And I think that starting at home part is a lot of what's been lost in society. And so here we are looking at the effects of that falling apart.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the general people that, we'll say what it is. If you look in Portland and Seattle, a lot of the they're not protesters. You're not protesting. If you're out exercising your First Amendment right to peacefully assemble and address, grievances with your government, that's one thing. But when you're destroying things and you're putting people's lives in danger, including your own, then now you're a rioter. You're just being an idiot and you're rioting. But I think if you look at that demographic, and this is not a race thing. If you look at the age demographic, as I make fun of it, but the kids that their parents either had to work, or a lot of times their parents both worked because they were trying to keep up with their neighbors of cards, pools, house, this. I'm going to put all my kids in all these activities. Kids came home and they didn't have anybody. Mom wasn't raising them at home. Dad was at work. Mom was at work. I've worked with women in the federal government that have told me that they really just didn't like their kids because my career that defines me. They're dragging me down.
Yeah.
That's the kind of people, those are the kids, everybody that we gave participation trophies to with soccer. Right. When I went out for Little League, the first time I went out for Little League, I'll never forget it. I didn't make the team. I went to tryouts and I didn't make the team.
Yeah.
I was devastated. I cried. I went home. My dad was like, "What are you crying about?" I'm like, "I didn't make the team." He goes, "That's because you suck at baseball, son."
Right.
He goes, "From now on, why don't you come and ask me, hey, Pop, can we go out and throw catch? Can you teach me this?" He goes, "I'm not going to give it to you. If you want to learn, I'll teach you. If you want to play baseball, get better, make the team."
Yep.
Lo and behold, I'm still here and I'm intact. And I have a pretty good self-esteem thing with myself. But we got to that point to where the latchkey kids and these group that we let them raise themselves, and the millennial parents that raise the current Zoomers, which I think I got all those labels right.
I think so. You're doing better than I do with them, Chief.
But they didn't want to be the bad guy to their kids because their parents my parent, I'm going to give my kids everything I didn't get. That's the problem we have. Those are the people you see in Portland and Seattle and all these other places being stupid. Is I'm entitled to this. I have a right to do this. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to listen to anybody. Whereas you're right, at home, you were brought up to say, hey, look, these are the lanes you stay in, and this is how you act when you're a civilized human being. And you're right, you were taught, hey, you know, a law enforcement officer, a policeman, is that is who you go to. You know, if you're in danger, you get a hold of them. You know, and even as adults, even as young adults, 20, 30-year-olds, you see it on TV. You know, my dad told me, you know, we had friends that were law enforcement officers. Again, it was a small town. And a lot of the military guys that came in and did tours with me, I've got one of my best man at my wedding. He's a retired Pennsylvania state trooper. You know, a lot of people I know in the military, it's just that natural progression. If they get out of the military, they go to law enforcement.
Yep.
Makes sense. You know, and I've told Boy Scouts, I gave them a class on this is what you do if you get pulled over in a traffic stop. You know, the things that you're taught, very simple. Hey, man, pull over to the right side of the road as far out of traffic as you can. Stop your car, turn on your flashers, turn your car off. Here, take the keys out and put them up on the dash if you're smart. Don't be moving around. Put your hands at 10 and 2. Roll your windows down. If you got back windows, roll them down. Hell, I don't care if you throw the hatch back up. Roll your windows down and sit there. Yep. And when the officer approaches you, he's gonna announce himself. He's going to tell you what's going on. He's probably going to ask to see your license and your insurance and your registration. Don't start, okay, officer, my license is in my wallet. Is it okay if I reach for it? My insurance is in the glove box. Is it okay if I reach for it? I'm like, and if you say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am, to the officer that's there, keep your mouth shut. You know, part of this too is don't, well, I know, I guess you caught me speeding, you know. I guess I know why you pulled me. Just shut up.
Right. Don't
Follow
make excuses and don't say anything that incriminates yourself either.
Yeah. You know, be polite, be respectful. You're going to be nervous.
Yeah.
You're going to be I was like, guess what? The cops know that. They're trained to know that. They know you're going to be nervous. They just pulled you over.
Right.
So just chill out, relax the best you can, be respectful. But that's the everyday confrontation. I don't want to say confrontation. That's a bad word. That's the everyday interaction with anybody in any kind of authority. It's not just police. It's an EMT. It's anybody that's in any kind of position of authority. Don't try to show them how tough you are. Well, I was going to join the police when I was 18 years old, but I had an athlete's foot. Yeah, sure you were, Skippy. You know, just do what you're told. Be nice to people. Just be respectful. Understand that if the cop is not sitting there having a conversation with you, it's because he's scanning a crowd maybe. He's listening to an earpiece. You know, he doesn't have time, but he's not being rude. He's got a job to do. You know, I laughed one day. I was like, you know, my buddy, this is a state trooper in Pennsylvania. He would laugh about that when he was on, you know, events and all this other things for, you know, political things.
Yeah.
You know, trying to scan a crowd, you know, trying to listen. And people are wanting to chat him up. Well, you know, and he's like, you know what? I wanted to ask him, you know, where do you work? He goes, and I want to go on my off day. I wanted to go by their work and sit by their desk and go, what are you doing, Bob? Is that a good email? How many emails are you going to send today, Bob? You know, so, I mean, you know, it's just one of those things, but you're right. It comes back. You hit it perfect. It all stems back to the house, to the home. What are these kids being taught? Yeah. Are they being taught? You know, somebody needs to tell them this is how we do it. And in the absence of that, that is kind of what I try to do in between the dad jokes and some of the snarky responses on Twitter. I try to do a little bit of that, of taking this young group of young men that I am associated with on Twitter mostly, but reaching out is, hey man, look, I'm not trying to be your dad, but what I'm trying to be is I'm trying to be that voice in your ear that you may not have had growing up.
Yeah.
You know, I still have, my dad has passed away, you know, 6 years ago. My dad's voice is still in my ear, and I'm 57, going to be 57 in October. And to this day, there are still things that before I make an email, before I write a response to an email, before I say something in a crowd, before I do a lot of things, in my head, I'm going, you know, is my dad going to like this? Would my dad be proud if I did this? You know, my dad's voice sometimes will be like, boy, just, you need to shut up. Don't hit that send button. Don't do it. You're better than that. You know, so in absence of that voice for them, I feel that it's a sacred responsibility for adult men like us to be that voice for young men and women. I will make that disclaimer. I focus a lot on young men because that's what I know. I am not above mentoring a young woman who wants to. Women need to learn leadership too.
Right.
You know, my wife was a Navy wife. She stayed at home with our son while I toured the world, and you know, she had more leadership roles than I ever did. So it's not just to say men, but you're right. It starts at home.
Yeah. Can it be recovered? I mean, I know it's part of the mission of what you're doing, but when we talk these broad statements, I mean, it almost seems like, if not cliche, hyperbole anymore when you talk, because we're like, you know, look at these huge issues or among this demographic and so forth. Is it your thoughts, your feeling that we can recover, that we can get back to where we need to?
Absolutely, we can, and we have to. It's not a matter of want to, it's a matter of have to. But you're right. How do we do that? It's easy to sit there and freaking shout at the wind, going, "We got to change this." I'll be honest with you. That is one of the biggest reasons I'm on Twitter. I was on Facebook, and I still am. I don't do that much Facebook anymore, but I'm fixing to start doing Facebook Live things again because I see other people doing it. And it's a great way to garner an audience. Yeah. Twitter is short. You know, I mean, you've seen this Twitter. You know, you tweet and your timeline scrolls so fast that it's gone. The average lifespan of a tweet is like 20 seconds. But I use that to try to. I'm not going to do it by myself. You're not going to do it with me. And a lot of these older guys, and I say older, when I say older, you know, we have a hashtag called the Gray Wave. You know, mostly it's dudes over 50, but you know, anywhere from 40 to ever how old you are, you know, we were all kids and we all looked at the older people and like, yeah, pops, whatever. Okay, boomer. I love that one. Okay, boomer.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but what I'm doing is some of this group that I'm dealing with that are 22, 24, 25, 30, all I do is I plant these little seeds in their head and I give them ideas for tweets and all that. Well, then they've started to see us as a group of elders. And I hated that title when I first got it. Billy Redhorse, you know, he dubbed us the elders because he's big into Native American history and heritage. And the tribal elders were the ones that did raise the young people, right. Matriarchs and patriarchs, you know, and all I do is I give these young men, I give them a thought, and then they turn it into their own. And then I don't have to do all the work. What they're going to do is they're going to take it and they're going to, you know, it's the old, you know, shampoo commercial. They'll tell two friends and then they'll tell two friends and so on and so on. Pretty soon they'll do it themselves. If we try to be, instead of being preachy and doggone it, you kids today, I had to walk uphill to school both ways and in the snow in July. You know, if we quit being preachy like that, if we try to make honor cool and we try to turn it into, hey, honor was pretty cool. And that's how I go back to the Declaration of Independence. And when I teach, I kind of embellish this a little bit when I do these talks to young people. But, you know, they don't know. They weren't there. Neither was I. So you can't really say I'm lying. But I kind of frame it in their mind when I go, hey, look, man, you guys got to understand, you know, you see all these pictures of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and all these dudes there with their white hair and their curly hair. You understand that they wore wigs with powder because they didn't shampoo their hair and they had lice and fleas, right? You understand most of them were bald because if you got lice in your hair, it was a mess. So they just wore wigs. I was like, you understand that the average age of the signers of the Declaration of Independence was somewhere between 27 and 30 years old. These weren't old dudes. These weren't, you know, the Mitch McConnells and the Nancy Pelosi's that we have today. These were young dudes that had really, quite honestly, they'd had enough of the king shit. So they said, we're done. So they all came together and they said, look, man, this is what we're going to do, you know, and then to try to relay it in modern terms, you know, in Call of Duty, you're all in. We're going all in. That's what they did is they went all in.
Yeah.
They said, we got farms. We're going to throw all that, you know, and then you tell them the stories about out of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, you know, 9 were hung for treason. 17 more went bankrupt. 3 more were shunned by their family. It didn't turn out well. They weren't the heroes until today. Their life sucked, but they knew that going in. And that's why they said, hey man, our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, we're not going to back down. So if you make it Twitter is full of gurus, you know, the fitness gurus, the money gurus, you know, having that warrior mindset. I honestly, I don't know what a warrior mindset is.
Right.
I don't know.
After 24 years, you're still, yeah, I'm not sure.
I still
either.
don't know. I mean, every day was different for me, but I didn't have a mindset. I just went and did my job. But anyway,
Right.
you know, you try to make this to where this honor thing and this integrity and this courageousness, you know, I focus on courageousness a lot, you know, honor, courage, and commitment. I use the Navy core values as a mark a lot. You know, it's to try to make this cool. And I noticed on your other podcast, I'm going to point this out right now. I noticed on your other podcast, because I did watch them, and I noticed over your left shoulder, there's a statue, bobblehead of Teddy Roosevelt.
There is.
Okay. I have used Teddy Roosevelt extensively talking to Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Because I would tell the story, you know, of young Teddy Roosevelt. And I'm like, look at what this dude crammed into a lifetime.
Right.
Look at what he did. This dude, he is, you guys go home and you watch Bear Grylls. Teddy Roosevelt was the original Bear Grylls.
Yes, he was.
You follow Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL, on Twitter.
Yep.
Teddy Roosevelt was the original Jocko.
Oh, yeah.
He was the original badass.
Yeah.
So, but he had honor and he had integrity. He had courageousness. He talks about the man in the arena. It's easy to sit up in the bleachers and bitch, get down in the dirt and get dirty and bloody. So I'm like, if you can look at that, Teddy Roosevelt was cool. And Teddy Roosevelt has all the things that we just talked about. So why can't you be cool like Teddy? I wrote a blog post about that. I wrote, you know, about Teddy used to have freaking boxing matches
in the White House.
White House, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he got his ass kicked.
Oh, yeah.
But he loved it.
Yeah.
You know, and they were like, dude, you've got to stop doing this. You're going to have a freaking brain hemorrhage.
Even his infamous charge up San Juan Hill didn't work out so well for him, but it made him an infamous leader.
But and you know what? He failed, but he learned from failure and he didn't quit. You know, it's easy now to go, well, I failed. I give up. I quit. I'm just going to sit here and piss and moan about it all day. You know, so I saw that Teddy Roosevelt is probably one of my favorite presidents. You know, I've got a lot of favorite presidents, but you know, if you can take what we talk about and I try to make it cool, to try to get these young men in their head of going, maybe there's a little more to life than sitting here in my mom's basement playing Fortnite. You know, I'm 27 years old. Maybe I ought to do something in my life. Maybe I ought to go out and do something. I can do something honorable. You know, I tell them, hey, you know what? The most honorable thing you can do is be involved with anything that's bigger than you. Step outside yourself. It doesn't have to be big. You want to do something? Well, you can't do it now because of freaking COVID, but go to your local veterans home and volunteer to help at bingo. You know, I've been doing that for 10 years at our local veterans home. I've made some great friends. I've lost a lot of great friends. You know, the majority of them are now at Arlington, and I go visit them, you know, twice a year, every year. But, you know, you make a lot of great friends and you hear a lot of great stories, you know. But go sit with the guy at a veterans home and listen to the guy rattle on with his war stories. You know, go help, you know, in a disaster, go clean up stuff. Go ask your neighbor, hey, I noticed your grass is getting a little high. Don't bitch at them. Just say, hey, maybe their lawnmower's broke. Hey, can I help you out? Do you need some help? You don't know that he didn't twist his ankle and he can't get out and cut his grass. Go help the man out. Go do something bigger than you. And then watch yourself grow and watch your honor expand and watch how you feel about yourself. And if you're so busy feeling good about what you're doing and you're so busy being focused on everything besides you, you don't have time to be a disrespectful little brat. You don't have time to riot in the streets. You don't have time to be breaking the law. You don't have time to be doing drugs and heroin and you're too tired at the end of the day. All you want to do is go to sleep, get up the next day and live your best life again. It's really just that simple. That's all we got to do. So that's how I'm trying to do it.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. And that is so needed just in general. I love the way that that's all boiled down. So I know we're getting a little late on time here, but we could talk for hours. I love this conversation, but let me just ask a little bit about the projects you have going on, just so people know. So I know you got the blog, so just take us from there.
In fact, just the other day, I have recently shifted I thought I was going to try to start a part-time, side hustle is the buzzword they use on Twitter. I was going to do leadership consulting and stuff like that. I don't need the money. I'm doing very well for myself financially. I'm a retired military. I'm a government worker. We've saved. You know what? My mission is to make young leaders ready to lead and do what I can to help them lead. So the projects I have right now is, I got to give a shout out to Jonathan Pritchard. He is on Twitter. He's a mentalist. He's worked on America's Got Talent. He worked with Chris Angel, but he's a Renaissance man. He does a lot of everything. Jonathan, I've dealt with him for years, a couple years now, and the other day he decided that he'd read a lot of my work and he's listened to me. I've talked to him. He decided that I needed my own website. So Jonathan gifted me a website. He went and made my webpage, bought my domain, just because I just didn't have the time nor I'm ADHD. I can't sit and develop a website. So if you go to www.chiefchuck.com, that's my webpage, and I'm moving all my blog posts there. You can email me directly. I'm chiefchuck2k@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter @chiefchuck2k. I do have an ebook on Gumroad. You can go to Gumroad and search Chief Chuck. It's a little book. It's called Sailor Words. What I did was I was teaching this at Boy Scouts. I would tell them, sit around the campfire and keep them enthralled for hours with, hey, have you ever heard the saying, the devil to pay? Yeah. What do you think? I was like, what do you think that means? Oh, if you don't do that, you're going to have to pay the devil. I'm like, no, you're wrong. I'm like, there's going to be the devil to pay on the old sailing ships. The keel down in the hull, the waterline, the midship, the keel of the ship is called the devil. And one of the worst jobs you could be assigned as a sailing seaman was to pitch. They used tar pitch, and they had to constantly be down there spreading tar on the seams between the planks of the ship. The process of spreading that tar pitch was called paying. You would pay pitch. So when you got in trouble, the bosun would send you down along the keel in the hull of the ship where it was hot and rough and leaky and stinky water, and you had to spread tar along the keel to keep it from leaking. So that's termed the devil to pay. P's and Q's. You always heard when you're going, you better mind your P's and Q's.
Oh yeah.
People hear that and they think about English peas and carrots and stuff like that. All that is back to the days of sail in the taverns at night. They had big chalkboards, and the barkeep, they would keep track of your tab. P's were for pints, Q's were for quarts. So the sailors would come in there, and you'd get a pint, and the bartender would chalk by your name. He'd chalk one under the P, or be one under the Q. Well, the bartenders are smart, and bartenders are very smart people.
Oh yeah.
But the bartenders back then, they would notice the sailors getting drunk. And when they're over there laughing and hooting, they would erase under the P and they put a mark under the Q because it costs more money. Well, in the night, the sailor basically spent all his money, and he paid for more than what he got. So that's where the saying, mind your P's and Q's, meaning you better watch what you're doing and pay attention to what's going on around you, or you're going to get in trouble and you're going to get screwed. So basically, I wrote a book of all of these things, of how we got some common phrases from nautical terms. You could go on Gumroad, look for Chief Chuck. It's $1. I charge $1. I don't care.
That's awesome. I will link that up for sure in the show notes.
All I do is I take that money, and when we are able to go to the veterans home, my wife and I, any money I make online, I take that money and we buy snacks and gift cards and toiletries and stuff for the veterans up at the veteran home. It's not going in my pocket, man. Like I said, I don't need the money. I just do it. Apparently all my Twitter gurus have told me that, people won't take stuff for free. They don't think it has any value. So, but if you charge them money for it, they think, well, that's got to be worth something if he's charging me money. I'd give the damn book away. I don't care.
Right.
But I charge $1. I take that money and we turn it around and give it to the veterans up at the veterans home. So, it's all good, man.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
that's awesome.
That's really what I have going on. I'm not out to make money. Not really an income stream, but what I will put out is, anyone listening to this, if you have questions about leadership, have thoughts about leadership. You know, if you're getting a new job and you're going to move into a supervisory role, if you're going to be, if you just got named, chairman of the board at your church, civic organization, something like that, and you've got questions, get a hold of me, man. I will help walk you through things and I won't tell you how to do it. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll just give you some thoughts and ideas on what it takes to be a leader versus a boss. Yeah. And, that's a whole college course and another show of itself about being a boss versus being a leader. Right. And a lot of people don't understand that. Sometimes you got to be the boss. You got to do the transactions. You got to keep the business going. Sometimes you got to be the leader and you got to rally the troops. So that's really the projects I got going on. So, anyone at any time, my DMs are open. All you got to do is give me an email. I will talk to anybody anytime, as long as you're serious about it. Don't waste my time. I won't waste yours. But yeah, you can get a hold of me anytime.
That is absolutely great stuff. Let me ask you one last question in conclusion here. This is kind of how I end every show. And you've given so much good advice. I don't know what we can add to it, but here's the question I ask. What is the one takeaway, the one thing that law enforcement officers, or anybody for that matter, but law enforcement officers can do that'll make a difference in their personal lives? What's that one thing if you were to boil all this down?
I think that if you can boil all that down I think the best way to put it is to put it simple. And, I go back to the old days of good cartoons. Literally understand that you do have that little angel and that little devil sitting on your shoulder. It's called your integrity. It's called your character. Character is who you are. Integrity is what you do when you don't think people are watching you. Your honor encapsulates all of that. So the one thing that you can do personal wise is, be true to yourself. I mean, honestly, be true to yourself, and you need to take time every day. Secretary Gertz, James Gertz, is the undersecretary for acquisition for the Department of the Navy. Great leader, great person. I listened to one of his talks, and I have a sticky on my computer monitor, and I have it on my mirror in the bathroom. Secretary Gertz taught us 3 things every day. And this is perfect for law enforcement, especially first responders, military, program managers, anybody with a stress job. 1, self. 2, team. 3, mission. Those are the priorities that you have to take care of every day. And here's why. It sounds selfish, and it absolutely is. You have to take care of yourself first. Hey, get up in the morning, meditate a little bit. It sounds Zen hippie crap, but just that moment of having that coffee on the deck, on the front porch, wherever, that's meditation, man. Get in your space, work out, stay healthy, take care of yourself, because then you'll be able to take care of your team. This goes out in concentric circles. You'll be able to take care of your team, and your team is your family. The team is your workmates. It's your shift at work. If you're a law enforcement officer, it's whoever you're with every day to get something accomplished, which is 3, the mission. The mission is a big overall thing of where we're going and how we're going to get there and what we want to accomplish, whether it's a healthy, happy family, whether it's, hey, we're all going to go out on the blue line today and we're all going to come home at the end of our shift and we're going to go see our family. We're going to go on deployment in the Navy and we're all going to come home successful. We're going to make that deal today. Everybody's going to do their part and we're going to be successful. That takes care of itself. If you work backwards, take care of the team will take care of the mission. You can't take care of the team if you haven't taken care of yourself. So self, team, and mission. That's the best I got.
That is powerful stuff. So we'll leave it right there.
Good.
Chief, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have been here. Thank you.
Thank you.